everyone, I'm Alia Dipu. Welcome to my channel. Today, after a long time, I'm back with my series, The Book Reviews. And I was thinking, what should I do? Should I do another series? And I thought, what book series would I do? That's when it hit me. What other book series to do than the first ever one which I've completed? This is the Sophie series, written by Dick Smith, and the first book in the series is Sophies Snail. So let's get into a review of Sophies Snail. So this book was first published in 1988 by Walker Books, and it has a total of 6 chapters. The first chapter is one very small foot. So it starts off with Sophie, her 2 older brothers who are twins, Matthew and Mark, and her father. Her father is asking them whether they know which animal has only 1 foot. Do you guys know? I'll give you guys 3 seconds to think and answer. 1, 2, 3. Time's up. The answer is a snail. And her father says the next time you see one, maybe pick it up and check whether it only has actually 1 leg. So they have a yard, and the children run out to find a snail to check. Matthew and Mark immediately find one, and they're both 2 snails actually, and they're both identical, like the twins. After seeing the snails, the twins get an idea of having a snail race, and they send Sophie to fetch 2 markers in 2 different colors to put their initials on them to see which snail wins, because they're both identical. And they didn't wait for Sophie to find her snail, and she was very cross about it and went to find a snail of her own. And the first rock she lifted underneath it was a very small snail. It was a lovely buttercup yellow. When she came back, the race was over, and the twins said, yeah, nobody won. They didn't fully go the right way, but they said that both of theirs was first, which meant they went the longer distance. So they had to have a tiebreaker and did another race. This time, Sophie Snail was also racing. And the twins, did not go, like, even after the race started, they did not go anywhere. They were just sitting there inside their shells. While Sophie's tiny snail, even though it was very small, it was very determined, just like Sophie. So it's made its way through the raceway path and all the way to the finish line and won. Sophie said, "Yay, my snail won." But there was no one to listen because the twins, had already gotten very tired of the snail racing and went to find another thing to play. So she was very proud of her snail and brought it inside her house. Her mother said to her to keep it back, keep it in the yard, but she didn't listen. In the next scene, it's time for Sophie to brush her teeth. So she went to the bathroom and filled the wash basin up to the top. She clogged it and filled it up to the top and brushed really hard, making a lot of bubbles, and spit the toothpaste out. She stood there and watched all the little shapes the toothpaste would form, and then pulled the plug, and all the dirty water went through the pipe. But when she looked, she didn't see her snail. She quietly went down and told her family that her snail went down the drain. They weren't of much help, and she tried to forget it, but they didn't help. She couldn't forget it. She was so very attached to that tiny snail. So the next morning, she went to the bathroom and to look down the wash basin again. And behold, 2 tiny little horns poked up from the drain. It was her snail. It was very small but very determined, just like Sophie. It came all the way up to Sophie, so Sophie picked it up and put it outside in the yard. And she bid it goodbye, saying, "I hope we meet again." That was the first chapter. Now let's move on to the second chapter, Farm Money, spelled Munny. So the second chapter, Farm Money, starts with Sophie saying that she wants to be a farmer. The boys make fun of her, saying, "All farmers are men, you can't be a farmer." And her reply is to say that she'll be a lady farmer. Now she'll have a couple of animals, 2 hens whose names are April and May, 1 cow whose name is Blossom, a spotted pig whose name is Measles, and a Shetland pony who's called Shorty. And she'll also have a small field of corn. Then the next question that arose was, how was she going to afford all this? She does not have that many animals, and she's definitely not going to make enough money to afford that farm. Her answer is that she's going to save up. But it's going to take a long time, right? So she's already started saving up. She brought out a little piggy bank that says, "Farm money, thank you, Sophie." That's how the second chapter ends, and the third chapter is Aunt Alice. This chapter, we're introduced to Aunt Alice, who becomes one of Sophie's favorite people. And when she actually hears of Aunt Alice for the first time, she thinks that Aunt Alice is a very huge or a very tall person, because Aunt Alice is not Sophie's aunt. She's actually her great great aunt, so her grandpa's aunt. But when they actually meet, Aunt Alice is actually a very small person who doesn't even come up to her father's shoulder. And Sophie and Aunt Alice start to bond. And towards the end of the chapter, the twins, Mark and Matthew, come up to them with a game to find out which one's Mark and which one's Matthew. So Aunt Alice loses, and Sophie tells her that even if you're right, they'll switch up their names so that you're always wrong, and they'll always get £1 each. So, and she also tells her aunt that she's saving up money to buy a real farm. So in connection with all these things, or because she's happy that she told her the truth, and to also help her with her saving, Aunt Alice gives her £2 instead of one, like she gave the twins. And the next chapter, we're introduced to another new character, Dawn. The fourth chapter, Dawn, starts with Sophie's mother thinking that Sophie's going to grow up to be a loner. I know, how mean. But it's true. She's always comfortable in her own space, and Sophie's mother wishes there was another girl around her age that Sophie could play with. And her wish is granted when Dawn and her family moves in quite close to them. So Sophie's mother invites them over, and Sophie's very upset because Sophie is a tomboy, like a tomboyish girl, while Dawn is a super girly girl who carries around this pony named Twinkletoes. So when Dawn's family comes over, the parents get to talking and sends off the children to play somewhere. Sophie and Dawn Anyways, Sophie and Dawn move off somewhere to the yard to play, and there she gets mad at Dawn because she thinks that her Twinkle Toes, her pony, is just a fake animal and that she has real animals. So she takes Dawn to show her real animals, which are basically woodlouse, caterpillars, and all the other insects that she has found around her yard. And Dawn, like I said, she's a very girly girl, and she's not really interested in all this and thinks they're creepy crawlies. So when one woodlouse comes close to her, she squashes it and kills it. And Sophie's very upset, so she grabs Tingletoes, puts him down to the ground, and stomps on it. To be honest, I'm very glad she did that. And then Dawn starts crying. Her parents come, they take her, and now there's a rivalry between her and Dawn. And no matter what her parents asked, she wouldn't tell her why she did it, so she was sent. She was in trouble. Then her brothers came and they asked them what happened. And she told them that I didn't tell my parents, mom and dad, because they would just say it was only a woodlouse. I'm sure she didn't mean to. And then she told the twins what actually happened. The twins went and told their parents, and they came and said the exact same thing. It was only a woodlouse. I'm sure she didn't mean to. And that's how the fourth chapter ends, and we're on to the fifth chapter, A Bad Back. A Bad Back starts off with Sophie walking around with her mother's sunglasses. It's like a white rim and black lenses, or like sunglasses. And she looks into her living room and sees a dead body. Oh my god. She runs to her mother, tells her, "Oh my god, Mom, there's a dead body in the living room." And her mother's reply is, "I hope it's not dead, but it's actually your father. Take off your glasses. No wonder you couldn't recognize your own father." So she goes into the living room. She takes off her glasses. She's like, "Daddy, are you okay?" She says, and he says, "I have a bad back," the name of the chapter. And Sophie tells him, "Well, obviously you have a bad back. You're laying down on the floor. If you wanted some rest, you should go sleep on the bed." Her father sighs and explains to her that she's actually laying on the floor because her back hurts and it's supposed to be good. Anyways, Sophie thinks, well, this is the perfect time for me to keep you company, Dad. I'm gonna go find some games that we can play. At first, her father's excited, but as the day goes on, Sophie's not tired at all and keeps on rambling and playing, and her father just keeps going along with it. And they actually called for a doctor, but he was scheduled to come in at the evening. So until the evening, Sophie kept her father company, and then before like the doctor came, they were playing a game called Doctor Dose. Anyways, the doctor came and they were like, "What's?" And he's like, "What's wrong with the happy family?" He says, "Her father says I have a bad back," but actually because he was playing with Sophie, he laid down for a long time and his back was pretty much cured. He stood up, he walked, it was okay. But the doctor then came and he said, I know a perfect solution. You should lay down on the floor, and I'm sure the little girl can keep you company with a few games." That's how chapter 5 ends. Now we're on to chapter 6, the last chapter, and in such an intelligent look. In the sixth chapter, Sophie is told that she's going to soon have to start going to school, and Sophie's not happy about it at all. And one of the reasons is that she's going to have to meet Dawn. But she tries to think positively. When she goes to school, they'll be sure to have farming lessons because she wants to be a farmer, and she can also do judo, so she can knock Dawn over, which I'm very glad she thinks that. But when the twins come back, they say we don't have farming lessons, and only juniors do judo, and they have pilchards in tomato sauce, which Sophie hates, and is the only thing that they serve for lunch. How sad. And she was actually afraid of collecting some small insects, but her aunt Alice taught her that it's no good being afraid and that she should go for it. So she was very happy. She caught an insect, I think it was a earwig, by herself, and she was very happy about it. And then the chapter ends with her finally meeting her little snail, the yellow buttercup yellow snail again, and saying, "Hello, dear. How long? Why did it take you so long?" And that is the end of Sophie's Snail. And this is Sophie. I didn't show you her properly. And overall, I love this book. It was like a very, how do I say this? Like a very light read. There isn't much um depth to the stories or like much lore or something. It's just something that I could read to make myself feel better. So I really like this book and I'm looking forward to give you guys my reviews of the rest of the 5 books. Before I forget, make sure to like and subscribe. Bye!